Welcome everybody to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan, welcoming you here every Monday, whether you're joining live or whether you're listening to the recording. Have fun, enjoy today. We've got a fabulous lineup for you, and you're going to not only feel inspired and motivated, which is our main aim, but you're also going to learn a lot more about our friend and my spotlight today, Adena Mark Kapon. So how do we work? For those of you who are joining live, you already know what to do. You stay on mute, but please be active in the chat. Feel free to show any support to Adena, make any comments, share, even though it's not an official networking group, share your details in the chat, and basically have fun. So as I said, I'm Lesley Kaplan, and this is co-hosted by ACI, and we have a sponsor of the month with thanks to Lali's Flower Boutique in Jerusalem. So I'm going to add our guest Adena as a spotlight. Adena, I've been privileged to know for many years now. Socially, we've also worked together and done some stuff together. So it's always great to work with you, Adena. Adena is a bundle of energy. You light up for even, that I don't see you every month or week live, but from the energy and the stuff that we've had together, I see that you're a bundle of energy. Adena is the founder and CEO of A to Z Events, or maybe you say Z to Events, pronounced the American way. And Adena basically helps, and her company helps people from abroad, mostly from abroad, and you'll share with us more about that, fulfill their dream and having their simcha in Eretz Yisrael, which is something very, very special, whether it's a bar bat mitzvah or a wedding. So Adena, please share with us 30 minutes of inspiration, motivation about your life in Israel. I know it hasn't always been smooth sailing. There's been many challenges as well. And I do want to add to what we were joking about before we hit the recording live, is that with every event, I'm sure there are things that sometimes don't go as planned, or you have to suddenly at the last minute reroute to do something different. And likewise today, it's the first time that I've had a guest on the show that her camera just wasn't showing her. So we were wondering, is it my camera? Is it my computer, her computer? We weren't quite sure exactly what it was. And, we had to think out of the box. And yeah, what do? We let her join via her mobile phone. And it turned out, yes, the camera wasn't working, even though it had worked for her earlier on. So likewise in life, we have to suddenly think out of the box and not panic when something happens. So Adena, please share with us 30 minutes of wow, take it away. And we're looking forward to hearing your story.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope I'll be inspiring, as inspiring as you are, and some of the ladies and gentlemen on the panel that I know, and I also find inspiring. So if you see me looking in two places, that's because I am actually on video from my phone, but I'm seeing you guys on my laptop, and the sound I think is from the laptop, right? Yeah. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Adena Mark Kapon. Today, I am the owner of A to Z Events Israel, which is a boutique event planning company where we service mostly clients from overseas who want to come to Israel to celebrate their bar, bat mitzvah, wedding, or other important, meaningful, lifetime family event, or not necessarily family event. I do some corporate and organizational events also, but really mostly the private family events from all over the world, mostly from the United States, but I do have clients from Australia, South Africa, Canada, and not just the United States. My clients vary in terms of their reasoning for coming to Israel to celebrate their events. Sometimes it's idealistic, sometimes it's religious, sometimes it's logistical. Like I actually have a lot of my wedding clients are young couples, a young lady and a young man who made Aliyah on their own, and their families are one's from South Africa, one's from England, one's from New York, one's from I don't know, Belgium. And so it's a great meeting place for the families to get married, to come together. They don't have to choose, is it from the girl's side or from the boy's side, but the couple chose to live here. So that's why they chose to do the wedding. And also, both families could be from Teaneck, New Jersey, but the couple moved to Israel and they really, really want to have their wedding in Israel. That's where their friends are and that's where their new life is. For bar and bat mitzvahs, it's mostly idealistic reasons that they want to come, and they want to just celebrate their very, very, very momentous occasion in the most special place that can be. And I have a very, very wide variety of religious backgrounds and cultural backgrounds and even religions. Like I've had non-Jewish people also. And so we do, like, we very, very often navigate the bridging of the gaps between different cultures, different religious backgrounds. And sometimes the religious backgrounds aren't just between the two families, like from the bride side and the groom side, but even from the couple and their parents, because I very often have couples who, move to Israel. So like organically, you're going to say like, well, they might be a little different from their parents. Maybe they went a little bit more religious than their parents are, or they have different values, I'll say, or priorities as their parents do, or at least at this stage in their life. So sometimes it's not only navigating between two families, but it's navigating between the couple and their very own families. And that's always very interesting. And of course, cultures, we have a lot of different cultures that we also try and bridge the gaps. And what I usually tell the couple when it's time to kind of decide, well, is it going to be, I don't know, like more Sephardic? Is it going to be more Ashkenaz? Is it going to be more religious? Is it going to be less religious? I always tell them, first and foremost, is you as the couple, like you should know what you want and choose what you want. But as the couple, and when you're choosing what you want, take into consideration that this is very, very much a simcha for your parents and for your grandparents. And this is really the moment of your lives when you can let everyone that you love be seen, be heard, be present. So like if there's some like far off, custom that you never knew that your grandfather had, that he does under the chuppah, and it kind of wasn't what you had planned, and you're not sure if you like it, and it's kind of off. Let's think of it as something really unique and something, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like dramatic that you can add, that's like something that your friends won't have. And it's just giving your parents or your grandfather that moment to feel like seen and heard. And it's only going to add to your simcha. So that's like a lot of what I do is bridging the gap. Also, I say bridging the gap. Sometimes it's with language, and sometimes it's with actual just like cultural expectations. So when I have young couples who move to Israel on their own, let's say they came for their year to learn, or let's say they came to be a lone soldier, and they've been living here for 5 or 6 years, there are very, very different expectations in terms of what they want at their wedding than their parents who have been living in, I don't know, Chicago or LA or Long Island. And the weddings are different and their expectations are different. So I bridge a lot of the gap. I remember once I had a family that was, very high standards, and they were willing to pay for their high standards. They were hosting their guests. They were all coming for their child's wedding. And the couple really, really wanted this amazing DJ that their friends had. Now, in many of the higher end events in the States, a DJ is like, that's not what they do. They don't do DJs, they do bands, they do orchestras. Like it's very, very, I don't know, different, and it looks different and it sounds different. And so I had to like explain to the parents, no, we have very, very, very expensive and high end and high standard DJs. Like it's very, very common here to have a DJ. And that doesn't mean that your wedding is it's not lower level in any way, and it's not embarrassing. And I understand the need for you to like have something that feels right for you and for your guests. Let's think of a way to kind of mesh the two. So we brought like a beautiful live orchestra to the Kabbalat Panim, for the welcome reception and for the chuppah. And then they played for like a little bit of the first dance, like the big simcha dance in the beginning. And then we transitioned very organically and in the right way, like to the DJ for the rest of the dancing. And everyone was very happy. So bridging a lot of gaps is a lot of what I do. And, that's in terms of weddings. For bar and bar mitzvahs, even then I'm bridging the gap, because when you have like the same parents and the same family coming to the same decision of where they want to have their momentous lifetime event. So again, the standards that they're used to there are different than here. And so I try and meet their expectations and live up to their standards, not me, myself, but like bringing them service providers that live up to their expectations and standards, but also explaining to them how things are done here and why it's a little bit different. So I think everyone here is living in Israel long enough to know that the photographers wear t-shirts and jeans when they come to the event. And sometimes that's like very upsetting to people who aren't used to that. Like in America, that they don't do that. They come like much more dressed. I don't know, like things kind of like simple, small things, but they're not, because it's like very, very important event to them, and they want to make sure that things are done. Even something simple like buffet service versus waiter service. In America, a buffet is like a very like lower end event. And here it's really not. Here, like we have very, very high end, very expensive even events that are buffet, and we do things a little bit differently. So I explain that to them a lot. So now how am I able to understand their needs and expectations and bridge these gaps, and really be able to give my clients an understanding that I understand them, I know where they're coming from, and that they can trust me to bring to them what's right for them, and that they'll feel proud to be the hosts of this event. And of course, that they'll be happy to spend the money, that they're making a very big investment coming all the way to Israel. So how do I do that? So I am originally from Long Island, New York, from Woodmere. I grew up there and started my family there. I married and started my raising my family there. In 2001, my mother had already, my mother lived very close to me. Sorry, I should go backwards and say my mother lived very close to me. My mother was remarried and had my sister, the one that just had the baby we were talking about. So she was,
Mazal tov. Adena just made a Brit in her house yesterday. I was just thinking, good that it wasn't like a Sunday motivation, because you would have canceled me at the last minute.
I would have had to not take that day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were living very, very close to us, and we had a very, really good, happy life there. And my mother, who had always dreamed of making Aliyah, finally realized that the time was when my sister was about like going into high school. From all the stories that she heard, she felt like it was good for her to have like a year or two before high school to acclimate, so that high school wasn't like a total horrible experience for her. So they moved, my mother with her husband and my sister, they moved in August of 2000. And unfortunately, very sorrowly, she was killed in a terror attack in May of 2001. So very, very shortly after she moved, like not even a year. And so as much as we were very, very Zionistic and loved Israel, and we came to Israel a lot, my husband at the time and I, with our children, we visited Israel a lot, and we had some other family here. But certainly in the year that my mother was here, we came like 3 times. And so that murder and the terror attack and everything surrounding it, our whole experience of the funeral and the shiva, and the very unique and incredible experience of feeling embraced and loved by not only the whole country, but also by this community in Efrat, was a big trigger for us to say, like, we don't want to love Israel from afar anymore. We want to be there. And my sister was a big trigger reason also, being 12 years old, and I like had already practically raised her, even when we were living, close to each other with my mother around. Even now was even more so. I felt like I needed to really be near her and be more a part of her life. And we picked up with 5. At that point, I already had 5 children. No, yes, I had 5 children. Sorry. When my mother was killed, I had 4 children. By the time we moved in 2004, we had 5. And we made Aliyah to Efrat, and very like best decision we ever made. Both of us feel like it was like the best thing that ever happened to us, even though it was in the shadow of something so tragic and horrible. But it was definitely the best thing that we ever did. A few years later, we had our 6th, and she was named for my mother, so our first and only Sabra. And a few years after that, we divorced very amicably, and both remarried. And like we like to say, and our children still say to today, we didn't break a family. We added more people into our family. We expanded our family, and we brought more people to love each other and love our children. And that's really what it is. And we have, like, thank God, a really beautiful relationship like that. Yeah, I see Toby added it. That's true. I never like to leave out that when my mother was killed, she was in a car together with a young lady who was a Trumpiste at the time, and she was also killed. Her name was Esther Alwan, and I have a very special relationship with Esther Alwan's mother till today. So that was our Aliyah, and at the time I had 5 children who were ages 10 to 1.5. And today my 10-year-old is 30 and she has 2 kids. So we, Baruch Hashem, are like, really was the best decision we ever made. And it was the happiest thing, the thing that we could have done, you know, for our family. So, and if you talk to my children about the Aliyah, they actually like feel even like a little, I'm sure some of you can relate to this who have children who were either born here or grew up here, but like they feel very awkward about that, like hearing that they were Olim or that we made Aliyah. They're like, we're Israeli, like they don't know anything else. Like, you know, my kids were so little and so young and they live here for 20 years that they don't even like consider themselves Olim, and kind of like weird for them, at least certainly the younger ones. The ones who were, the one who was born here, the 1.5-year-old and the 3-year-old. So the 3 older ones kind of have memories of living back in New York, in Long Island, but definitely don't think of themselves as Olim. So that's a beautiful thing for me. To me, that's a success story, an Aliyah success story, that they don't even consider themselves to be Olim. And so I found myself after the divorce as a young mother with 6 little kids, and I needed to support them. And I also wanted to be around and, you know, be home for them as much as I could. And, you know, how do I do that using my, like, whatever skills I had? In the past, I worked, when we lived in New York, I should go back a little bit. My then husband is an interior designer, and we together started an interior design firm. And we built that firm to be like from something little teeny tiny little storefront to be something very, very successful. In fact, today he has 2 branches, one in Jerusalem and one in New York. So my skill set was working with high-end clients with high-end expectations on projects that were sort of time limited. You know, they weren't like, it's not like a forever project, like someone who's, let's say, a hairdresser, right? Like, you know, that person for, you know, almost their whole life because they come to you on a regular basis, but it's this like project that's like with a time limitation, but you're very, very intimate with them. You know, a lot of their details of their life and their family and their feelings, and you become very, very enmeshed, and then it's over. So, and we're like, it's a very, you know, luxury kind of item. So I felt like this was very like similar. It's a very, very similar situation, high-end clients and looking for someone who's like going to be very intimately involved with this very, very important project in their life. And in this case, it was also utilizing my knowledge and my skill set of living in Israel and speaking the language and understanding Israeli culture. So it was like really like a perfect match for me. You know, when I speak to a lot of my clients and I say, oh, your other daughter got married in XYZ, I know exactly what venue they're talking about. And they love that. They love that I understand, you know, what they like and what they did in their first wedding for their other daughter. So that when they're planning the wedding with me here, it's, you know, they just have like all the more trust and feeling of like comfort working with me. So that was like really like a perfect match for my skill set. Also building, you know, having my own schedule, making my own schedule and kind of choosing my clients and choosing, obviously, I obviously don't choose like when their event is, if it's a specific day or time, but I think I've been very, very blessed in like almost 18 years that I'm doing it, that I've never, okay, I missed one daughter's ballet recital because of an event it just didn't work out, and there was no way around it. Like the event was the same night as the ballet recital. But really, other than that, I never like missed anything for my children personally, or like in their school things because of my business and my job. And so I feel very blessed about that. And I think I went off track, so I'm trying to think of where I was. And so today my children are much older. So today my oldest is married with 2 children. My 3 oldest are married, and one has 2 kids. The other single daughter is out of the house. My son is in the army, and my little tiny baby who was born here just graduated high school, and she's going to Midrashah next year. So now like my schedule is, you know, completely my own and very free. And I very rarely find like clashes between my personal and my professional life. And I don't have to worry about it like I used to. And as far as where things are today in my business, so, you know, I say this a lot to my clients, like I've been through waves of terror, like as they call them. I don't know how to say that in, you know, when we had like waves of terror, right? Like there was like, I don't want to call them an intifada, but we had those lot of those moments. We had the wonderful Corona, and I've been through like a lot of situations where I really had to overcome adversity in terms of like what's going to happen, where are they going to come from, are they going to come, how's my business going to survive. And mostly I found myself consoling them, letting them know it's going to be okay, and don't worry, and it'll work out. And again, because anyone who's really coming to making a decision to come to Israel to celebrate their event, most of them are determined to do that, and they have a love, and they have a Zionism, and they're very focused. So nothing will stop them unless it's going to stop them. So like Corona was really the only thing that really stopped my clients. Like even through waves of terror, sometimes they had some cancellations of guests who didn't feel comfortable to come, but for the most part, there was never like anything that really like very strongly affected my business in terms of like the relationship between Israel and people coming from overseas.
Adena, what about October 7th?
So until October 7th,
that's a big deal.
Until October 7th, that was the biggest one. Because even Corona, what happened was with Corona, there was a big pivot, and a lot of people from Israel were hiring event planners because they just didn't know what to do, how to do it, or how to navigate it. And there was so many changes, and it was too much, and it was a lot to handle. So I was just looking back the other day at my calendar from that year mostly in 2021, because in 2020 there was really nothing, but mostly in 2020, end of 2020 into 2021, I had the most events booked on my calendar than ever before. It was like a crazy busy year for me. They were different. There were different kinds of events, but it was very like I don't want to say successful because that's horrible to think of in a pandemic, but it was a very busy year until October 7th. October 7th was different than anything that ever happened to, obviously, to our country, but also to my business, because it wasn't only affecting people flying from overseas, it was affecting people here. You either have, sons in the army, injured family members, dead neighbors, dead friends, like everyone had something and some reason where they just didn't want to have a wedding or couldn't have a wedding. And definitely people were not planning to come from abroad, because even if they themselves, like I've had people say, I will stand at the kotel by myself if I have to. I am not canceling my son's bar mitzvah. And I've had people like so determined. But when you're talking about planning a wedding or a larger event, no one's going to put that much investment of time and money where people aren't going to come. It's just like, it's not worth it. And people just were not coming. I'm not talking about canceled flights. I'm talking about people who were like, we're not doing it. We're not inviting people to come to a war zone. And so that was very devastating. It was like a very devastating. It is still a really devastation to my business. And I see lights at the end of the tunnel. People are calling for, there's two things. Either people are calling for like in a year from now to book their wedding, or they're calling me a month in advance. Like, okay, I see things are quiet. I feel better about it. My cousin who lives in Israel told me that it's okay. And then they're ready to book it, but they don't want to like do it too far in advance before they really have kind of a good feeling or good answers about it. And so it's either or. I'm not doing like usually I have weddings booked from overseas between 6 months to a year in advance. Bar mitzvahs also about 6 months to a year in advance. Now everything is either a year plus or 1 month. So, but thank God I'm not complaining. If they want to call me a month in advance, I will make it happen. Like Lesley said, most of what I do is troubleshooting and dealing with surprises and disasters, but that we don't let them become a disaster. Very little of what I do, here's a secret, very little of what I do has like a lot of talent as an event planner. I'm mostly a family therapist. I'm mostly a project manager. I'm mostly a troubleshooter and ganenet. Like making sure people don't fight with each other. But a lot of family therapy is a lot of what I do. And then just because I happen to be creative and I happen to have good ideas, and I also happen to be, I'll tell you, I'm very good at like budgeting. So because of that, it works in the event planning part of it as well. But like, when someone said to me, like, how do you train or how do you know? Wow, I don't think there's any real training that you could do that would teach you what I know. Like, I really think most of my tools, my skills, my talents and my capabilities are mostly things that I've learned from my life and professional experiences that brought me to where I am today, and that give me the tools that I need to do what I do today. And I'm so sorry because I see messages coming in, but I wasn't able to like read them fast enough, or they've been off my screen.
Yeah, no, it's all good. People are commenting on some of the things that you're saying. And it's so true, like with most professions, but especially with yours, that personal touch is what makes all the difference. You know, yes, there is the talent and the organizational side, but that personal touch is what's going to make somebody choose you as opposed to somebody else, and what's going to make the event that super success.
Yeah, I see that more than ever. And then just on a, you know, I don't know if you want to call this like spiritual or religious end of it, like I've also come to believe that like what's mine is meant to be mine, and what's not mine was never meant to be mine. Like I very rarely get disappointed if someone doesn't hire me after we have like a meeting and I send them a proposal, or I mean that's usually like where it ends, you know, like usually like there's like a first time conversation, and then I send them a proposal, and then sometimes like another meeting or conversation after that, and then we move forward. But like I've never, not never. It took me a long time to realize that like there's nothing to be disappointed about. Like it wasn't meant to be mine. So like it's not mine. Like there's nothing to be upset about. Like I made a mistake even thinking that that was meant to be mine. And like there's nothing to be upset about. And the one that's meant to be mine is waiting there for me. That's like something that I've really come to believe very, very strongly, and even more so since October 7th.
Right. Well, I totally agree with you there, Adena. And that's such an important lesson, is that, you know, what's mine is meant to be mine. And if it's not, it's not, and moving forward. And that's all part of the looking at the half cup full, which is somebody that you are from the time that I've known you, and what you have to be when you're running an event. I mean, yes, we all have our moments where we maybe think of the half cup empty, but that's not what we are. And that's not how we basically will move forward in life. So you've been very inspiring, as I anticipated, and your story, and you're bringing Eretz Israel, and we're here to promote Eretz Israel and Am Yisrael and important people in Israel. And that's the whole idea of this program, not only to inspire, but also to give exposure to Israeli businesses, individuals, and organizations. And the fact that you're bringing people here and allowing them to experience this unbelievable moment in their lives. And I've no doubt that it rubs off on so many generations, people that were there, that you never know. Many of them made Aliyah, and I'm sure.
I believe so. Yeah, I've seen it in a few of my events with my clients, that people like say like, how did I not come for so many years? I'm going to come back soon. And okay, I thought we were just going to do the wedding here, but we're definitely going to do more smachot here. Like people do very, very much become inspired and connected. And that's absolutely something that I like to do. And you know, on a smaller note, when someone says like, oh, I could probably, here, Lesley, you'll appreciate this. When someone says, I could get those water bottles for cheaper in America, or I could buy those tote bags on Amazon for much less. And I say, but let's support Israel. You're coming to Israel. Let's support the Israeli economy. You might save a little bit, but it's really not that significant that it's A, worth the savings, or B, worth you schlepping it.
And then schlepping it here, absolutely.
So let's just do it here. And when I say to them that way, like, you know, just support the Israeli economy a little bit more. You're doing the photography, you're doing the flowers, you're doing the catering. Let's also order the bags here and the water bottles. And then they're like, yeah, okay, you're right. You know, like it's a perspective that I like to give them. And I feel very good about that. Yeah.
Right. Kol hakavod. So you're not only supporting Israel, you're running a business in Israel, but you're being an ambassador to Israel. Whether people make Aliyah or not, that's not the event here, and that's not the issue. But you're supporting Israel. They're going back. You're the ambassador to them here, and they're going back and being ambassadors for our very special country. Wow. So we've come to an end of our 30 minutes. So thank you very much. Don't run away. I have an announcement to make. We've come to the end of 30 minutes. Thank you very much to Adena Mark Kapon of A to Z or A to Z Events for being a fabulous guest today and for sharing your inspiring as well as your challenging moments with us. And that's basically what Israel is. Israel is basically a melting pot where we're here for good or for bad. And this amazing little country of ours is really amazing. So thank you for joining us on the Monday Motivation Spotlight. As I
Thank you for
say,
having me.
thank you also to ACI, our co-hosts, and of course to our sponsors, Lali's Flower Boutique. Next week, ladies and gents, and more important for the ladies, whether you're joining live now or whether you're listening to the recording, we have a double event. Once a month, we have a double event. So next week is our double event where we have first our Monday Motivation Spotlight, and our guest for next week is Shoshana Jen Lubin of Just Connect, and she does many other things too, which she'll share with us. She also lives in the Gush. And then following that, we have Martine Elberstein, who will be our guest for the Professional Women's Networking Forum, talking about social media, do's and don'ts, facts and fallacies. So make sure that you stay and book off for a double event. We have a 5-minute break in between, and it's actually very manageable, and you're going to have lots of fun. So thank you again for joining us. I'm Lesley Kaplan. I'm Israel Chai. May we have only besorot tovot, and looking forward to hear only good news. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day and a safe week. Thank you again, Adena. Bye.